Do I have your consent to begin this interview and to have this interview be recorded?
Yes, you do.
Oh, mahalo. Can I have
Only you.
can I have your first name and last name, please?
My first name is Mekialoha Pumehana Hemolele, and last name is Howard. But I go by Pumehana or La.
Awesome. Mahalo plenty. So today is Thursday, October 15th, 2020, and I'll be conducting an interview for my senior portfolio project with Pumehana Law, and today we're just going to be going over some interview questions, just talking story. You ready to begin, La?
Awesome, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. For the record, let it be known. Yes, sir. Bless, sir. Awesome. So our first thing now, when did you get involved with the movement to protect Mauna Kea?
So back when I was a student in high school at this public charter school called Halau Kumana, in 2015, many people were invited to come and help pass Pohaku to build an ahu on the Bachman Lawn or John Wise Field, otherwise known, on campus. And that was one of my first interactions, besides going to some of the hearings that were on campus also to talk to the Board of Regents about what their plans with TMT was going to be. And I'd say those are my first interactions with TMT and like really learning about all of the other telescopes and stuff back in 2015 as a freshman in high school.
Oh, in high school. Oh, mahalo for that. And so I just have one quickly now. So in 2015 is when the ahu was built on Mount Bachman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, mahalo. And my second question is, what is your affiliation with the University of Hawaii at Manoa?
So I guess my first affiliation when I was in high school was just like a confused student, because even like toward elementary, like I kind of learned about like UH Manoa and their ordeals with like patenting Arcalo and GMO, and then I was confused later on with the whole TMT stuff and their decisions on that, and then I became a confused student at the university, so my perspective sort of changed into like being able to talk to them on like their own level, because I was part of the university too. And right now I'm taking a break from my studies, but still confused. No.
Oh, mahalo. What inspired you to stand so strongly for the protection of Mauna Kea?
Many things inspired me. I would say some of the greater things are definitely the first like big stance with the kupuna, and when they arrested all of the people who were on the Mauna, on the cattle guards. And then of course my teachers for putting out the hand that they were gonna take part in like the big kuleana that it is, sending students and trying to just have a learning space on the Mauna. So I figured if my teachers were gonna put in the work, the students should help to support that. And I would also say a big one would be the Lahui and my older sisters, one who was helping with the medics team, and that whole team in general. They're also very inspiring. And then my other older sister, who is a college student at UH Manoa, finishing up her schoolings, because she's hall with it almost. Gonna graduate in a master's, Kool-Aid Freed. And I'd say those people really did inspire me.
Oh, that's
to
awesome.
stand for the Mauna.
Awesome. Yeah. You were talking about some kumu help paved the way for you to stand strongly for Mauna Kea. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about who those kumu were and how they helped you.
Oh, awesome. So I began with Hawaiian studies while I got to the university, and then I got into ethnic studies. So those were typically the community of teachers I had. I had an ethnic studies professor, Tai Tengan, who helped me to get into the ethnic studies programs, who helped me even before I was a college student, actually, coming into my last year of high school, I got to sit in some of his ethnic studies programs. So I got to see like what kind of community I wanted to be in when I got to UH. And he helped me during that semester by allowing me to document daily what was going on and how that applied to being an ethnic studies student, and how it would apply to a bunch of different communities who would go through similar things over like land issues and land rights and whatnot. And he helped me even to get in contact with a bunch of people before I got up to the Mauna. And I was actually up on the Mauna in one of his classes, like 3 months before all of that stuff had gone down, maybe, or like couple months before all that stuff had gone down. It was super trippy, because we were up there, and the Mauna, like I didn't really think that like we just would drive past my house a couple months later, that I'd just be living up there and like being up there all the time. Because when we first went up, we had got to see like Anakepua Case, who was doing a lot for the Mauna, which showed a lot later when she got to really guide a lot of people on the Ala Hulu Kupuna, as well as now running for OHA, Lanakila Manguel. And he was showing us around Hulu Hulu. So he was like one of my first teachers at that university before it was a university for me. And Kumutai was just super great with like getting my connections out. So because of ethnic studies, I really got a lot into like having a community, and I ended up working at that department with Ula Hassiger and Kat Lobindan for Kaho'olawa'a. So they were helping me because Kat Lobindan even brought up the Tongan delegation with her when the Hawaiians were up there with Kumuhina. So I got to see her up there too. Another one of my teachers was Noelani Goodyear Kaupua, who I knew from before because she's one of the founders of Palau Kumana, the high school that I went to. And she was allowing me to do a political science class with her. And I was also documenting and reflecting on different journal entries that she had me to guide me along with my reflections and stuff, to have stuff to talk about. And there were different articles on what the Hawaiian movement has brought about since its renaissance, and since Kanaka just really don't give up on what they believe in. And she had me reflecting on stuff that took me back to a memory of like my younger children, like school days, because I kind of did see some of those Hawaiian influencers around in the movement, and I was influenced by them to get into that mindset of Aloha Aina. And she came up with her daughter too before school like had started in the summer when everything went down. And I know that she would fight for anything, like she's one of the types of people, just like Kumutai and all the other teachers I've had, who are really about their students and can create a space for them to just get connected to the like-minded individuals that would help them and want them to succeed. And she was very much that, so I ended up in her class as well. Another kumu I had was Maria Lohalani Brown, who was doing Mo'olelo class and a class on Hawaiian religion, which was super cool and grounding because she allowed her students to view what was going on the Mauna because of the way it had showed some of our religious aspects by the hula that we do on the ala and stuff. And she would come up to the Mauna to FaceTime the class so that they could see what was going on up here. And she would even take them like around sometimes, so I got to go with her to like spots about like the mo'olelos in her class that they like talked about. And she knew a lot about, like, she would talk about how mo'os are a representation of our waterways and whatnot, and sometimes just like the waterways, when the mo'os are rough, the waterways are rough. Or she would like explain how these were stories that were passed down so that we'd have like memory about the attributes of the land and stuff. And that's how she explained her class. But it was super cool because not many people like really get to learn the culture even from like a university level, which she provided for people who are taking her class and then who are like on the Mauna as well. And it was just cool because those teachers were just trying to help everybody that they had in their class. and she was super helpful for me and another student I knew, Barakavika, who was also taking her class with me up there. I also had a Papahuli Lani class, and that one was so freaking cool because I was I was doing Kahola and I was already like interested in like the stars and stuff, but the professor she would explain all of this stuff over a computer, but she like would give us a video lecture, and she was still like super easy to learn from, even though it's over a computer, which kind of tripped me out because she's a like somehow like the university, like the Kumus can almost be like your auntie, family kind, and she'll like talk like that almost sometimes in the lecture. But she would explain different natural phenomena, the way that we observed it, which is more familiar to me because everything I try to do is hands-on, the way that the Kupuna were, and I think Kilo is very hands-on because you gotta see it, or you gotta experience it, or at least hear more about it to know what was going on. And it was nuts because I was able to observe the things that she was talking about, because she would be like relatable to the season too, and it was crazy just because. Oh, and her name is Kaleni Uhiva. Professor Kaleni Uhiva. She was going by the seasons, so I would look up at the sky, and the view from the Mauna of the sky is ridiculous sometimes, because when the clouds are gone, you can see like the whole. I don't know, the sky on the Big Island is like bigger to me than it is on Oahu somehow. Like, especially over there, like between these two giant mountains, like I could see the Maui's fish hook like setting by Mauna Loa, and Big Dipper coming above Mauna Kea, and like when the year had like changed into winter, I started to see Orion's belt and whatnot, and she was talking about like what we would do during ceremonies in certain times of the years, Olelo no Eo, and how they had to do with what time of the year, and or even like you're kind of a horoscope type of thing, where like what kind of kid you'd have if you're born in a loud month or in a quiet month or whatever. But she would trip me out just like with all of that stuff, because I don't know, it felt more like it felt so cool to learn it on the Mauna, because I feel like I could have been doing the ceremonies too. Like she had us keeping track of the moon, which is like which is so funny because she'd explain, like I had another professor who had explained the moon phases in Olelo professor, and she had taught us a game, because they say that the kids, like it's a little kid's game, because as a kid you're supposed to already know all the moon phases. So like studying it at a university level, it's just like cool because, like I didn't really have it as a kid too. So it's nice to keep it up in my studies and to have that advantage, just going to live by the moon and stuff. I also had Noukahau Oli Rivera, and I was doing a poetry class with her, which helped me to reflect on on myself, on my actions on the Mauna in a more kind of like in a more like in a way that would resonate, with you and whoever your community is in that area. For me, it was cool because I'd be able to write poems with like the medics who I'd cruise with a lot, and I was able to just like ask them about like what would you talk about, like if you're explaining what you see every day. And like I ended up writing a couple poems like with the discussions we ended up having, and then like got to read it to them and stuff, and they'd be like, yes, like that's exactly how we felt. And like to bond with poetry is kind of cool, because it's something I try to do with like music, but poetry in her ways, like we're reflecting off of some pieces in class too. And then having a partner, my friend Makamai, was up there, Alexandra Makamai, Kaupu. But she was helping me because she was also in that class, so we get to like share our poetry together. And the way that she writes versus the way that I write was cool because she and I just had a different way of explaining the same story almost, which is nice to see with like the perspectives. And she would like I remember one time we were sitting in the medic's tent, and me and her could hear the bombing going off at Puapulo, and she ended up writing about that stuff too. But it was nice to see, like, because I remember we were crying. She was bawling, even more so her, because it would make her reminisce about when she'd live, because she's from Big Island. She lives on one side of Mauna Loa, and she could still even hear it on the other side of Mauna Loa. Like growing up, sometimes she'd hear the bombing. So she's like crying even more so because she like it's just never stopping now for her. You know, like she's been hearing it so long. And then me, I was freaking crying because to hear that shit going on, you know, like while I'm standing in front of the mountain, that thing is blowing off right there. The wind changes, like, and then she'd write about it in her poetry, and the way she talked about it, like she'd mention like freaking akuas and all these people that everybody on the mountain is like learning about that belongs to that huge place and stuff. And did I miss a teacher? I feel like I missed. Oh, and my Olelo professor, Buddy. We're doing Olelo. Help me stay refreshed in my Olelo. Buddy is a legend. He is helping me because he wanted to see all of his students succeed, just like my other teachers. But he was doing the Olelo, which is kind of a struggle, just because you have to like be in the class and be present, especially the way he teaches and stuff. So like when I would try to do tests and stuff, my test was just a little bit behind just because I was up on the Mauna. But Buddy had no problem teaching me. He was really cool because he allowed me to like share and reflect about that kind of stuff too when we do like our reports and whatnot. Our Ho'iolelos kind. Our like speeches, I mean. But I reached out to him before I'd gone up, and he I wasn't even supposed to take certain classes, but my sister was just showing me like who was doing what, and I was lucky to have like an Olelo class, even just because he was one of the teachers who would like put up a space for class for students going to study on the Mauna and stuff. But I like the way that he teaches because he's not really like gonna make you read it a bunch of times. He'll just like have you he'll have you be immersed in reading and then speaking it too. Like he would have you practice, like no matter how ashamed you are, like he'd adjust it to us too. Like if, before we get to like the whole big group, he'd have you like practice, just trying to speak it out with somebody, you know, in that class. That way you get more and more comfortable. And I feel like he was a really understanding like teacher and super straight up, like he covers good issues in the class that's like relevant, and it's a plus because it's in Olelo. And I feel like that's a good way to learn Olelo Hawaii because it's not like too far back in the past for people to be like, oh, I can't really relate to it. Like he's talking about the stuff we're doing right now and stuff. And I think that's all my teachers.
Oh, awesome! Mahalo for sharing. All those classes sound super cherry.
Yeah, those teachers are very much what inspired me.
Oh, awesome. And my next question is, how has your relationship with the University of Hawaii changed since getting involved with the protection of Mauna Kea?
I'd say before I was a student with the university and then becoming a student is a change for the better, sort of, to me, just because I got to network with other people who are also at that university, and who better to try and influence the university than the people who do go there and who spend their time there all the time. And it was cool just because as a student, I'm not somebody teaching other students. I'm somebody also learning. So I feel like it's more relatable to the other students that somebody who's just learning about all these issues is doing something within the university to help out these issues and stuff. And I think that it was cool. I think that's a good change, just because, like, meeting, like, a range of people from all over the world, and then they get to see me as a student trying to help out versus, like, somebody who's, like, getting paid or just because, like, I feel like that would help them to, like, kind of think about what they want to do for the university, you know, like, in whatever position they hold. Because I just got here, you know, like, and I'm trying to at least freaking, you know, like, talk to people with every perspective. Because, like, there were other students who had organized, like you and, like some boys, Sarah, and when you guys organize, like, you guys would just dish out all the information, you know, and it was like, it wasn't like biased because I'm Hawaiian, don't support TNT. It's like, actually the environment and not just us, this and the other things, you know, and I feel like it's more cool when you're giving out the information and it's not to, like, influence them on a certain perspective. It's more so just to, like, get it out. And it wasn't, like, you know, we weren't part of, like, the news team for UH, or we weren't somebody who can just, like, make announcements to the whole school like the president can in an email. We were freaking students just trying to provide a space for the information just because somehow people at that university don't know what the university is doing to everybody, you know.
Oh,
but yeah.
Awesome, mahalo. And going into our next question, it's how do you envision a Hawaiian place of learning?
So I think I would envision a Hawaiian place of learning sort of like the way the occupation had happened, in the way that it was complete immersion in your community. Because, like, no matter if some sort of funding for this place of learning, Hawaiian place of learning to happen, no matter what the funding is, as long as it's with the community, like a whole range from Kupuna all the way down to the bebes, that that would be what has to happen. Because I feel like we sort of did a lot just working with each other, feeding each other, but that space where it wasn't just like we helped each other with the whole university to, like, gather information of a range of issues. We were feeding each other, making sure that we had each other's health on check with the medics, and people who stayed there, you know, they really got to like live with their own people. And I feel like no matter what the funding looks like, that way of life can happen just because, you know, like, all the Hawaiians, they know that the land and the people who have undivided interest in it are very important, because those people, they have itchy fingers, you know, they're gonna keep trying to grab, and this land still needs hands to malamai no matter what. But in the way that it looked like in the occupation, it blew my mind just because you could be safe in a place where, like, people were coming through daily, but, you know, it was still enough people to help regulate something. And I feel like it shows that people, like, or industries like the DLNR and like different state bureaucracy like stuffs, like bureaus or whatever. Like we can handle their jobs. There's people doing exactly what DLNR is supposed to be doing up there for free, and there's people doing exactly what healthcare professionals are doing up there for free. So it's just like, I don't know. I felt like that was sort of proof to me that Hawaiian places of learning can be even like on a va'a as long as we have a community together, you know, no matter where we are. But as long as there's big community.
Oh, awesome. Mahalo. And when you're talking about occupation, you're talking about pu'ukono, pu'uhuluhulu, yeah? Oh, I mean, and especially because, like, I know, well, I was up there too for a little bit, but the next thing now for you is, how do you sustain yourself throughout this movement?
Definitely making connections with the OG Hammers that just come from every walk of life possible to stand for the same thing. They're definitely a big part of the sustenance, because just being with others who are willing to like basically die for their people, their aina, all of that really gets you into that like mind space where you know you can do it if your mind believes and your body can achieve it, because you're just with the people who are gonna make you a warrior, and they're gonna sharpen your blade, you know. They want to see you become stronger, and in any way possible they get you there, you know.
Oh, mean. Mahalo. And moving on to our next question, it talks a little bit more about art, artistry, being like creative and stuff. So what specific aspects of the movement have inspired you to create art?
I guess my art would sort of be music, and one specific aspect would definitely be the Alahulu Kupuna, where so much is always going on. The people that come from all over give their offerings to the Mauna, to our stance, and to the Kupuna. But the Kupuna, like, since the beginning, you know, they're the example for everybody. And I feel like that was something that made me want to do more art, because everything we do should be to honor the kupuna and honor our mo'opuna, because the kupuna were the ones who worked hard enough to make sure that everything we got handed down to us. And that's enough of a reason for us to want to be the ones who keep it up and hand it down to the next generations. And I guess my art was kind of reflective of what my generation kind of sounded like as the way art comes out nowadays. But I wanted to put like a message or like a voice of the kupunas in there, because I feel like they're honestly more straight up. Like they would tell us, like, "Guy, you're gonna catch cracks for doing some shit like this." Like nowadays, it's kind of like more handed to us like on a cushion, or like, you know, they like cushion the blow or something. But seeing the kupunas up there, like they're like not messing around, like they're in the cold ass weather getting arrested for something that they're not messing around for, you know. But I feel like they're a big part of the movement and what makes me want to do what I do.
Oh, awesome. Mahalo. And then going into the next question, how has your art helped you to stay connected to this movement?
So I got to be in touch with the university as well as the community through this art. I was able to do pieces with the ethnic studies team, with you and Punahele, and that was because of Kumutai, Professor Rod and Professor Tai. But I also got to stay connected with the community, jamming daily with them at the kitchen. By the kitchen. And I feel like I feel like my music and listening to other people's music is a great way to really connect to things, because I think a lot of people resonate with music, and being in a struggle like that, you can get into like a space where you like look at everything and you start to get a little sad about just how many issues we all had to fight, and then somebody takes out an ukulele and then you're kind of just like, you know what, we're still fighting it together at least, you know, like it's not, they didn't get all of our kupunas and dwindle us down to one kanaka. We still have at least a couple handfuls of kanakas out of all the kanakas we got that want to see the kanakas and everybody else who loves Hawaii succeed in the way that we should be succeeding. But yeah, I think it's cool to stay connected with everybody, even the teachers in art. But yeah.
Mahalo. And for our final question, if you could say anything to your kupuna and or mo'opuna, what would it be?
I would say mahalo i ka mea loa'a. Thankful or gratefulness for what we do have to my kupuna, because they were the ones who gave it to us and who instilled in us all these values. And there's a big space in my body for mahalo-ness to those guys, because they raised all kupunas, you know, all elders, because they even raised the guys who helped stand from across the world with us, all the elders who were just willing to put in a mindset that carried us to this moment, you know, even if it was a kupuna who's on the other side of this issue, mahalo to them, because they instilled some sort of value to bring a sense of hope to communities in their children, because even on the other side of the TMT, they think they're doing what's best for them, and that's because of what they're taught to. And then I would say mahalo for what we have to the mo'opuna, because like for us especially, those guys should just remember, all the mo'opunas just gotta remember how special this place is, because of course they're gonna see us doing it, but if they don't remember, then this place isn't special anymore. And I think that's really our job right now. Everybody in the right now that exists, our job is to make sure that those guys just wanna, not for any reason, but just wanting to.
Oh, mahalo. I appreciate.
Mahalo to you.
Is there anything else you want to add or say before we wrap up this interview?
Mahalo so much for doing what you're doing in your senior project. I appreciate all this documentation. Getting it.
Yes, sir. Yep. So I'm gonna conclude this interview. Uapau.
Ualava.
Ualava mako I ka pohaku, ha?
Yes, sir.
Uapau. Uanoa.
Lele vale.
All right.
Yes, sir.
That concludes today's interview.